Hi, everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Lisa Alastuey, and on this channel, I offer a variety of inspirational and informational videos. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce to you guys a couple of my girlfriends who are going to talk to you about It Ends With Us and doing a movie review. I wanted to get on here and talk to you guys because this movie made over $100 million the first week of its opening. So it's kind of a smash hit right now in the summer. And if you're like me, it evoked some emotional response after watching it. And I wanted to again bring my girlfriends on here to talk about what the movie got right and what the movie got wrong, according to our opinions and perspectives. So just want to say hi and welcome Kim, Lauren, Laura, and Kerri. Hi, ladies. All right.
Hey, thanks for having us, Lisa.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So again, there might be some spoiler alerts here. So if you haven't seen the movie, you might want to come back after you've seen the movie. Okay. So I want to start on a very positive note. What did you like or what did the movie get right? So I'm just going to kind of go around one by one and then we'll add to it. So let's start with Kerri. What did you like or what did the movie get right?
All right. Well, let's start with casting. The cast was really beautiful. Um, the lead, I think he was also the director, right? The lead guy was also the director, but holy mackerel, was he cute. So we're gonna go surface level, like what they got right. Casting. And of course, Blake Lively is gorgeous and loved her supporting best friend. Yeah, really beautiful casting. As far as the like aesthetic of it, uh, beautiful representation, like beautiful Boston. It kind of showed kind of some quirky sides, like her shop. Gorgeous. Where is that shop? you know, in San Antonio. Um, and I feel like the message. So we'll get a little bit deeper. I'll move on from the surfacey, but the message, I think, what they got right was bringing to light of course, the domestic violence and kind of showing a little bit how you're not sure at first, you're unsure if it was on purpose or an accident, and then giving it another chance. And then finally finding that strength that she found to say, that's enough. This is not an accident anymore, and I deserve better. She did, have support with her friend, and she had her history, of course. And it kind of showed, it even just the title, It Ends With Us. It showed that, there's sides to this issue, right? So it's a good thing that they're showing sides. So you can fall into that routine and that practice of like accepting the abuse and staying in the abuse, but you can also stop the abuse and the cycle, because what she witnessed, I feel like, is like a lot of kids witness that, myself included, if we get on a personal level. Like that was a big trigger for me, right? This movie was emotionally triggering for me because I recognized that whole scenario. And yeah, I don't want to bring us down too much because we're focusing
On the good, on the good.
Yeah. So I think they got the message right. And I'll talk more about what I think could have been better. I'll talk about that later.
Yes.
But
yes.
I think aesthetically, casting, I think they got that right. I think they did okay. on that.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Kerri. Would anybody like to add to Kerri's answer on the aesthetics and also the message? Okay, so Laura?
Yes, I think the aesthetics were swoon worthy. I loved how they wove in a lot of symbolism with her name, with everything that they did, even to like her tattoo from her first love. Like your first love literally leaves an imprint on you, in you, and weaving that theme through there. Even just again, spoiler alert, even the name of his restaurant being the Root. And again, thinking about like he was very rooted and very grounding, her first love was. And then even her husband being a neurosurgeon, he worked on brains. He was up here in a different place. He was in his head a lot, which happens a lot with people that have trauma. They're in their head. So I thought it was very subtle about how they wove some of those themes through there. And they used a lot of symbolism to add layers to what was the story, you know.
Awesome. Great answer, Laura. Anybody else want to add to this one? Anybody else? Okay, so I agree. It was a message of hope. It was a message of resilience. It was a message of personal growth. We saw the character go through those different phases. And so I thought that that was really uplifting to add to that. Okay, so let's move on to Kim. What did you like, or tell us something that you thought that the movie got right?
Yeah, what I really loved was the character progression and transformation that happened very subtly and slowly throughout the whole movie. So you see this connection with her boyfriend at the time that ultimately becomes her husband, and then slowly how he transforms and has emotional responses to things that she's doing that are, to me or to an outsider, maybe not a big deal. And all of a sudden, he's having these big emotional responses. And then all of a sudden, he becomes violent, right? So there's abuse. And the abuse, like Kerri was saying, happens very subtly. So she's questioning it. Did that really happen? Oh, that's not that bad. She's questioning herself. And then little by little, I mean, becomes, very aggressive. And so I loved the slow progression of his character as well as her character, and how she kind of steps into her role as being a really powerful woman towards the end. And then I love the inspiration that she got from having a newborn baby girl in particular, because towards the end, spoiler alert, sorry everyone, she's in the hospital with the baby, and her husband comes in, and she owns it and says, what would you say to your daughter if this was happening to her, right? And it just really empowered her in order to have that clean break, because when you have a child with someone, it can be very sticky. And so this was a reason to launch in a totally different direction on her journey. So I liked how they did that.
Yes, very powerful. Anybody want to add to Kim's response? Okay, Kerri.
So I want to just piggyback on the message of transformation and how important it is, especially now for women. I think this is a great movie to see for women to see, especially and with their daughters, perhaps if they have daughters. Like this is or just to talk about it in the context with the movie, because I think it gives some really great talking points to kind of bridge that uncomfortable topic with not just a daughter, a friend's daughter, any young woman who could benefit from, I don't know, an older, wiser woman hearing from her perspective and everything that we've learned. So that whole idea of transformation and how it's okay to kind of come to that slowly. It does, and to forgive yourself if you haven't, right? Anyway, that's what I wanted to add.
Awesome. Awesome. Laura?
Yeah, I wanted to just acknowledge, like, I feel like that last scene was extremely powerful, and you saw a catalyzing force in that woman for that man. And they'd already kind of shown that she had this capability of healing people and connecting people, healing them with her essence, with being around them, and with just who she was, whether it was her mom or whether it was her best friend or whether it was her first boyfriend. But I really liked how they showed that again, and yet they showed the detachment, like she was helping him heal, but she was not attached to how he was going to do that. She still was like, this I'm making you aware of something really big with what's going on with the dynamic here with your daughter, and it's up to you to figure it out. And so I thought that was really a beautiful example of setting a really strong boundary with love.
Very good. Okay. Lauren, do you have anything to add?
Is it my turn to go?
Oh, well, yes, we can go. Yeah, you can go next.
I don't have a lot more to add. I think I agree with what everyone had to say. I thought that the casting was superb. I thought Jenny Slate, who was the best friend and sister, just blew it out of the water. And I think that the soundtrack was really excellent. So that's
Yes.
all I have to add.
Yes, yes. There's a Taylor Swift favorite in there for me. So yes, definitely. Okay, so moving on to Laura, what did you think the movie got right?
I think that they got right that even if we are unaware of it, our childhood and our family of origin, that there is some programming that goes down that, as much as we consciously try to steer our ship in another direction, and kind of to what Kerri was saying, if we don't talk about it, if we don't bring it up, it's in the roots. And so, and again, I think there was the part of the movie that really touched me in her character was where she recognized in herself that she'd done the thing that she hoped she wasn't going to do, which is become her mother. And yet she was not incredibly harsh with herself. She saw that she had a choice. And I think that that was really beautifully done. But yeah, I thought the movie did really well at showing the effects of trauma. Each one of the main characters had a trauma wound. And again, I saw trauma bonding. Her first boyfriend didn't really have a mom that was healing and loving, and she became loving and nurturing to him. She didn't really have a dad who affirmed her and told her she was great, and her boyfriend did that for her. And so I saw a lot of the dynamics in the relationships where they were finding people, and again, we're all hurt people, but finding people that could fill some needs, but they still had inner work that was going on or needed to go on.
Great.
I also saw that, and I'm with Kerri. I can't even remember his name. I don't even care. But when he said they were on the rooftop and he was like right here, right now, this girl would have been completely buck naked in less than 10 seconds. He's just amazing. But, and again, I was caught up in that. And so I was thinking about the characters, and, love is blinding and it's binding. And that's part of the the chemicals that go on in our body. And so she was enthralled. She was herself. She'd pull away. He'd chase a little. They'd go back and forth. And that that love hormone does tend to blind you to someone's, warts and moles, if you will. And
Hold
it
on to
did,
bad parts. Hold on to the bad parts.
yeah, and it did make her think that everything was amazing for the most part. But that binding part. So when she asked her mom, like, why didn't you leave? And
Okay,
one of
hold on. We're gonna get to that. We have more good
okay.
parts, good
Okay.
parts to talk about still.
Okay. Well, again, I think they got it right, that again, that the love is very blinding and it is binding. One of my favorite moments was, I really thought they got this right, because this could have gone really wrong, and it shows what incredible work that Blake Lively did as the producer and the director, is that friendship dynamic where she's telling her friend, and her friend is like honoring who her brother is and honoring who her friend is, and said basically, I will stand behind you as you leave my brother. And if you go back to him, I will not honor our friendship. Like she was imbuing her with some strength. She was empowering her. And I thought that was an amazing scene. Jenny Slate, I thought, like you said, knocked it out of the park. And then the other thing I thought they did right was they encapsulated something that I think happens to a lot of women in many situations, especially in domestic violence, is it's hard to do something for yourself when it's just you. But when when you have to do something really, really hard for a greater good or a little being, it's easier to make that not easier, but there's something about it. There's something more compelling for you to make the decision. So trying to leave him when it was just her, she's like, ah, but when there was a baby, all of a sudden, again, that gave her that extra nudge. And she's like, I'm not just doing it for me. I'm doing it for something bigger, including for him.
Awesome. Awesome. Would anybody like to add to Laura's comment? Okay, I would. I like that they did bring up how childhood trauma affects you as an adult. We saw the two main characters. They both had trauma. One, his mother was beaten, right? And he was going to commit suicide. And the other one was had the accident. Excuse me. They both had trauma in childhood, but how they acted out their trauma in adulthood was different paths. So I liked how they showed that. And they also showed that, what happens to you in childhood is not your fault, but as an adult, it is your responsibility to fix it. And one of the key things I also liked was the signs of abuse was trickled in throughout the movie. From the very first rooftop scene with Justin Baldoni, that's the actor, where they had that really hot moment. The first time she sees him, he's coming in angry, kicking a chair. And you might think, well, that's, he's mad. That could also be a sign of a man that's not in control of his emotions. That, when I think of a man, I think of a man who can control his emotions. Excuse me. And so that was pretty powerful. And then if you go back and watch that scene, he's telling you he's not a good guy. He's not in a good place to be in a relationship. And she ignored it because she was just into the fantasy, into the moment. He was hot. He was, pursuing her. But I think some clarity, you can see all the signs were kind of subtly, like Laura talked about, there was subtle symbolism, there were subtle signs of abuse that they were teaching the audience to kind of be aware of when you're getting involved with somebody when the relationship is very fast, And they did tie in one other thing, they did tie in how with physical abuse, statistically speaking, when you witness physical abuse, you're more likely to become an abuser or perpetrator or experience it yourself. And they showed that. And I thought that was powerful and how to break that cycle. So that to me was so many lessons that, were right there in that art of that movie. Lauren.
So while I do agree with you that the main character was caught up in the romance eventually, I thought she did actually at first kind of do a good job kind of holding her ground going, I mean, he was all about one night stands and she's going, oh no, that's not me. She's like, that first night after that intense scene of them together after he kicked the chair and he gets called away, she's like, see you later. And she didn't think she'd ever see him again. And then when she did, she's like, we're going to be friends. Like, we're not going to, like, I'm not one of your one night stand chicks. I felt like she did I feel like she came into this movie or this scene already a person with higher self-esteem than many people, just in how she handled that man. But I think eventually she did fall in love with the romance, and that's what made it hard. But I think, anytime you discuss abuse, or it's so complex and it's so multi-leveled, and that was something that I really appreciated about the movie. They showed just every relationship is complex.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Definitely. Thank you. Kerri.
I just want to kind of jump back to what you said, Lisa, about the two men. Like, I think I was really focused on Blake Lively's character, or Lily, um, because I wanted her to be that strong woman and not take whatever, and, Lauren, she was like she was strong from the beginning, and just how it just kind of showed too how kind of easy it can be to kind of slip into that chemistry that Laura was talking about, right? Like, it's easy to kind of forget about the signs that we've seen before. But I just want to jump back to the duality of the guys. This is also, I think, a great movie for guys to see, to be aware. So her young boyfriend, right? Her boyfriend when she was younger, he came out of it and he kind of bettered himself as far as we could see, right? He bettered himself. He kind of took the it ends with me kind of approach. And then we see this other, and he came from really difficult situation. So it was probably a tougher road for him, maybe. And then we see, Ryle and how he had trauma as well. And he was probably able to get the help he needed. And he still was giving into those violent kind of aspirations that his body, whatever his subconscious he didn't do the work. And he knew he couldn't commit to a relationship. So I guess there was a little awareness maybe on his part, but he kind of took the other route of just kind of letting things play out, and not doing the work himself. So it is a good movie for guys to see too, I think.
Good point. Good point.
They got that right too, I think. It's a good conversation starter for everybody.
Yes, yes. And Laura, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'd forgotten about their names. Atlas, it makes me think of Atlas has the weight of the world on him, like he's really grounded and he's of the earth. And then Ryle, he got all riled up. I actually had a lot of compassion for Ryle because I think he was so lacking awareness. He was really unaware. And it reminded me of almost like a sick child who is compulsively vomiting, like he had these things that would just rise up in him and he didn't have control. And I think I would have loved to have seen them explore that a little more with, maybe him in another scene on his own, journaling or talking to a friend or something, because I think it's really interesting. He chose a profession where he could control everything and control life.
Yeah.
And yet he could not control his inner world.
Yep.
And yeah, definitely him again, I think it would be good for men to see this because they can see what happens with trauma. It's not just, oh, you need to go and do the work. Like sometimes you don't even know you need to do the work. And sometimes it's coming through your body and you have no control over that outcome. It's only when there's aftermath that you finally have the realization, oh shit, I'm sick or I have healing to do. So yeah, I thought the male characters were really, really dynamic. And yeah, I'd love to have seen that explored more, but it was amazing.
Yep, they did a good job. The movie works with a domestic violence organization called No More. I'll link their website down below in the description box. And it's a global network and a resource for anybody experiencing domestic violence. And so they really tried to be mindful of abuse and the nuance and how subtle it can be. We know physical abuse because you got scratches, you got bruises and so forth, but there's also emotional abuse. There's manipulation, there's gaslighting, there's narcissistic abuse. There's some of those that are very covert that are also intertwined in physical abuse and why it can be so hard for people to leave. So I think that, working with No More and organizations like that and giving resources after seeing such a emotionally charged movie is, I think, very responsible on the movie's part. Okay, anything else that you think that the movie got right? Kim? Oh, you're muted, Kim. There you go.
Got it. I like the concept of how they showed, an act of kindness. Like you never know the impact one person can have on another. And so when she was young, she had this, really generous heart and lots of generous action to support her young boyfriend. And then they didn't talk for however many years or didn't even communicate. And all of a sudden, she sees him and he's this totally transformed person. And one of the reasons is because of her support. So I just love how it showed how like a small act of kindness can really help to manifest and help someone grow and flourish. And you might not ever meet up with that person again, and that doesn't matter. It's that you have this impact that you might not ever know about, and so just going around being kind, even smiling at someone is can be very powerful.
Yep. Laura?
And the flip side of that, I thought it was a really beautiful example of, again, dynamics between men and women where it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. He was holding a boundary, and yet he saw that there was a potential for her to be in trouble. And so he gave his number. He gave her an act of kindness, like, I will be there and support you. And I could tell in that moment, it didn't seem like he wanted anything from her. He didn't want a relationship. He just cared about her. And kind of like what Kim is saying, it was an act of kindness for him to give that phone number, because a person in that situation may not know what to do when the chips are down, when things go sideways. And so to see again, that archetype of a male that is loving, supportive, and protective without wanting to try to control or dominate or have a relationship with a woman, I thought was refreshing.
Okay, very good. I also liked that, she had boundaries. In the opening scene, she chose not to go see her father on his deathbed. She didn't have anything good to say during the funeral. And I thought that was powerful because it sends the message that you don't have to forgive, quote unquote, abusers. You don't have to be around abusers. And a lot of times people get lost in the weeds, that they think, oh, they're a family member. I gotta, forgive and put up with this. And I love that they said, nope, you can have boundaries and you can have another way of handling those relationships, even if they are family. Any of y'all have any comments on that? Laura?
I thought it was really good how they showed and they modeled her distance from him while she was pregnant. And
Oh.
she did it for a long time. She was ignoring texts. She was not responding. She was looking to other resources herself, her mother, her friend. She was, she's pregnant. She needs help. And then finally at the end, she did let him come and help out a little, but then it was like, that's all the help I can take from you. And then even in the hospital, the last scene, just modeling those really healthy boundaries of, this is the portion of a relationship I'm willing to have with you in continuity, and renegotiating that throughout the movie. And even her boundary with Atlas, like she was very clear about where she was with her relationship, her primary relationship. And I thought it was really beautiful how they made it look very synchronous, which was great. But even when the chips were down and she ran to him for support, they didn't show how it turned into her trauma bonding with him and then him helping her raise the baby. Like they again showed that she used that help, leveraged it, she went on, and it wasn't until later that she was maybe in a better place to reconnect with him. And I thought that showed a lot of spaciousness. And again, I know not everyone has that kind of luxury, but I think that was a really good way to show again that we as women have more capacity than we think, and we have other resources. We have people we can call on, that we don't need a man, that
Mhm.
it's a beautiful thing to be in a place where you're whole and healed to some extent, and being able to meet that person there, and then introducing them, to your life and your daughter and all of that.
Definitely. Good answer. Anybody else want to add to that? I would add that I liked that they showed that, the love that she had with Atlas was calm, it was safe, and it gave a great example of what a loving relationship should look like. Her love with Ryle was, anxiety, uncertain, walking on eggshells. And so that should tell you, how is your body responding to this individual in this relationship? And so it probably brought back her childhood memories because it felt comfortable to her, walking on eggshells, being feeling unsafe, feeling the reaction because she had to be around her father. So she relived that through her relationship with Ryle in a sense. But then ultimately she lands on Atlas, who gives her that safe, calm love that she really deserves. Kerri.
I just think it also goes to being kind to ourselves and taking the time that we need to heal from whatever, but taking those steps forward, right, in the healing process, but also being kind to ourselves when it's not like an overnight kind of, oh, I'm healed. It's a long process, and you're going to make mistakes. And, I think they kind of showed that they showed her vulnerability. So she started out strong. She kind of faltered a little bit and then she found her strength again. And so showing that kind of up and down of healing. And she's got a daughter. I'm sure if there's a second movie.
It starts with us.
Yeah. Oh, is there really a second
There's a
movie?
second book. It starts with us. So I think
Oh,
possibly. Yeah.
awesome. Okay. So there you go. So hopefully we'll get that story, right?
Yep.
Awesome. So forgive ourselves, right? When we need to
100%.
be kind to ourselves through
Yep.
our process.
Yep. Laura?
I thought they explored a stereotype that's out there about women and men in relationships, about something that men will say, like, you don't want a good guy, you want Mr. Exciting. And
Bad
so,
boy.
yeah, you want the bad boy. And so, and again, I think they really did such a great job showing that part of that is that childhood programming of what seems normal or what feels really good. And so, yeah, you're drawn to the thing that is exciting / dangerous. And what I call it the candy, like you want the candy and the ice cream and you want the exhilaration and the high, but the thing that you really need is to be rooted and grounded. You need the meat and potatoes, you need the simplicity, and that's what's really more fulfilling in terms of a relationship. I saw a really good meme that said something around like, you don't want a man that flips your switches, you want a man that helps you, co-regulate your nervous system, that makes you feel calm. And so I'm like, well, actually I want both. So
Yes,
let's have both, please.
Yes.
Both, man.
Okay, Lauren?
Just kind of piggybacking on that though, I feel like, at least for me, when Alice was reintroduced into the movie, my impression was that he was a waiter in that restaurant, not that it was his restaurant. And I felt like the dichotomy of the man she was with versus her childhood sweetheart was vast. Like, she was with the doctor and he was handsome, and like they were playing into all those stereotypes, and everyone gets to meet Atlas as an adult. And I mean, I thought he was a waiter. And then when he's the second time around, we find out it's his restaurant, and he was successful. And I thought that was just interesting. Because I did feel like they were playing on that stereotype and just that pull of who you were versus who you've become.
Yep. I like that. Yeah. Things that happen to you, they don't define you, whatever it is, your childhood trauma, your abuse, it doesn't define you. You define yourself. And I think that they tried to show that arc with the characters. So I think that was really good. Awesome. Okay. Anything else that you think that the movie got right? Anybody else? Got right. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about what did they get wrong? Again, these are our opinions. So let's start with Kim this time. What did they get wrong? Just give me one, and then we'll talk on it, and then we'll move to the next person and come back around.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that they got it wrong. It just felt a little weird to me when he asked her to marry him in the hospital. Like he was kind of spurred on by like holding the baby of his sister, and then all of a sudden, like they're proposing. It was just like kind of like a weird rushed scene that felt a little like hokey to me. Like I feel like there could have been more conversation around what was going on between them as opposed to like, hey, let's get married, and it was a little bit, it just didn't feel like the right moment.
Okay, very good. Anybody want to add to that? Kerri?
That was one of the things that I was going to say too, Kim, because it was so like he completely pulled focus from this beautiful moment of his sister having a baby. Like, and it just goes to show you that kind of narcissistic kind of personality that he was kind of embodying, that he kind of was like, are you serious? Your sister just had a baby. Let's do this maybe at a different moment instead of the one where your sister just had the baby. Let's celebrate your sister, her husband and the baby. So right on, Kim.
And then he like passes the baby back so that he could like, it was just so bizarre. I'm like,
I know. Yeah. I would be like, dude, we could do this later.
Yes.
Great, but let's do this later.
Okay, Laura?
Yeah.
I have a different take on that. I think that was absolutely intentional to show the rush nature, because I've heard women say before, we were dating and he was really cute. And then we were at my sister's house, and he was holding a baby. And all of a sudden I could picture myself with him. And so I feel like like whoever was the writer, they used that. They were like, she's looking at him. Here's the picture of our future. And then he's standing in front of her, and he's like offering her the whole package of what women may have traditionally wanted, handsome husband, gorgeous, hot, cute baby, the whole thing. And again, he was basically not just proposing, I want you, but like, I want one of these, like, I want everything. Let's go fast.
Mhm.
And again, pulling the focus and the rushedness, to me, again, that speaks to the trauma. That speaks to, he finally realized something that he wanted. And so he was going to rush into it because he needed the feel good. He needed the dopamine. He needed the adrenaline of it. So, yeah, I thought it was super awkward, but I was like, oh, that's awkwardly masterful.
Mhm. Awesome. Okay, very good. Okay, so Lauren, can you share with us one thing you think that they got wrong?
So it's not that they got it wrong, but I just want to point out that every person in that movie had money and healthcare. And I think that not everybody does. And that makes this type of situation, 1,000 times harder. And
Mhm.
that's it.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody want to add to that? Okay. All right, Laura. Yeah.
Oh,
I'll
I'm
add to
sorry.
it, and then
Oh,
go ahead, Kerri.
Laura. Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, the eye candy, and that kind of goes back to like what they also got right is this like beautiful setting, beautiful people, everybody's perfect. It makes you watch, it does. It makes you want to watch it because it's so beautiful. And then hopefully the message sinks in to those, to people who, may not get the message right away, right? It kind of puts you in that good good vibe zone with all the beauty and the perfection.
Mhm.
And then it hits you with that message. So I get what you're saying is, yeah, the real world is not like that. And, you know, even when Atlas was homeless, he still had like nice clothes. He had the haircut. He was basically clean, like, it wasn't like, yeah. So everything was perfect. And I wonder if that was intentional so that the message also showed that it's not just a socioeconomic issue.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay, very good.
I agree.
Did you want to add to that, Laura?
Yeah, I think there was an element in here that that was about the financial for sure, because that to me felt a little wrong because, and I always have to chant this to myself when I watch movies. I'm like, it's a movie, it's a movie. I'm like, well, who stays up with the baby? It's a movie. It's a movie. Like it's not real life. Yeah, like presto, her shop is open and it's beautiful. I'm like, where did she get, like $1 million
Money.
to buy that
Yeah.
and then support herself and yeah, buy a baby bed? So I just have to remember, it is Hollywood and they're crafting something beautiful for me to watch and engage with. And the part that I felt like they tied up in a neat little bow, which I feel like is wrong and did not hit the message, is what little I've learned about domestic abuse is it takes women approximately 7 times before they'll actually leave. So for them to encapsulate the cutting of those ties as the baby was born and she was strong enough to do it and everything was going to work out, that to me felt too far out there in terms of fantasy land, because I'm thinking it probably takes more times. And I'm also thinking, someone might want a support person there, or, he might fly off the handle. He might not cry. It's not that clean and easy to do that. We're not seeing what happens afterwards, where he's texting her and he's sending her flowers and he's proposing to her again and he's going to try again now for the baby's sake. So that felt very tidy, and I don't think that uncoupling from any major relationship, whether it's romantic or a marriage or a business partnership, I just don't think it's ever that easy or tidy. Again, I think it's very multi-layered, and I think it takes time. I think it takes a lot of time. I do appreciate that it was the end of the movie and she had to say the line. So
Yeah. Yep. Great point. I was going to say that as well about leaving. These situations can be very complicated. It can be very scary. One thing that they didn't show is that it can be a very dangerous time when a woman leaves an abuser. Do you guys remember the movie Sleeping with the Enemy with Julia Roberts? Woo! If y'all don't know that reference, go watch that one. That's an old one. But like I said, because it's complicated and it can take multiple times to leave, you have to be careful, especially if you have a friend in this situation, not to shame them. One of the things she did with her mother, why did you stay? That's kind of like not the thing to say to somebody in an abusive situation. The better question is why do they harm you versus why do you stay? But I think to be, a good friend is going to be key during those times. So this kind of goes, I want to say something to Laura. You talked about the friend saying that I'm not going to enable you in this friendship if you stay. Totally get it. But I'm going to play devil's advocate. If you have a friend who's abusive, they're probably already feeling isolated and alone, and you shouldn't abandon them. You should be there for them during those hard times, and that you'll be there when they're ready to leave. But you can put up the boundary and say, I won't be around the abuser. I won't be around your husband or boyfriend. That's where, it stops. So I think that, because I was a little taken aback when the sister said, I won't be your friend. Because I was like, whoa.
I felt that was for dramatic effect, because that's how
Yeah.
girlfriends are. But I do agree with you. I do agree. And to me, the question to someone that's being abused is not why do they do what they do? Because then that gets the abuser into thinking it's my fault, but rather the question is, how can I support you in this moment in time?
Exactly.
Because some people in abuse aren't even aware of it. They may just need you to listen. They may
Yep.
need you to, give them money to get out of it.
Yep.
The underlying answers that I heard from her mother when she asked that question, her mother said it was too hard to leave. And the things that I heard was, I was alone. I had children. I didn't have money. I was tied to him. I was afraid of him. He'd come after us and the kids. Like and when you're in that abuse state, problem solving and figuring out all of those things based on like a new way to survive, just finding money and rent and food and a job when you're already in a state of survival, your brain can't go that far. Like
Right,
that's
right.
too much to ask of it. So yeah, just asking, I agree with you. I think as a best friend or as a friend, the thing you can say is, how can I support you in this time?
You know, abuse, one thing, and then Kim, abuse, I don't know if y'all know this, long-term abuse can create brain damage. It can also affect your memory. And that's pretty scary to think about. And when you're talking to somebody and they're not thinking with clarity, they're not seeing reality, and you're maybe frustrated with your friend. Why can't you see this? Why can't you get out? You know, there's some things of the stress and the things that can happen to a person with narcissistic abuse, emotional abuse, that can do some severe damage, you know. So, Kim.
Yeah, at least I want to piggyback on what you said about the reaction of the abuser when you try to leave. Laura, like you said, they kind of tidied everything up. You know, she had the space. And in the movie, he's only like texting her and trying to call. But in reality, you know, he is a violent person. So in reality, he likely could show up, you know, physically hurt her. He could surprise her at work. He could try to corner her somewhere, and be very physically abusive. And so I think that's where they got it wrong based on his personality in the movie. I think he would have been much more aggressive in his way of trying to either get her back or intercept her, or you know, something like that.
Okay, very good. Anybody else want to add to that? Laura?
I think also to touch on what Lauren said, when you change the socioeconomic factors, that money becomes weaponized. And so I agree with Kim. I think that him, you know, crying and walking out the door of the hospital, I'm going to go and change and get therapy. I think he would be, I'm going to go and get the best lawyer, and I'm going to tear down your reputation, and I'm going to tear up your business, and I'm going to withhold child support. Like, they'll use money. And again, it's been something that's happened for eons, as a way to support women, but also a way to control women. So I think in the whole abuse structure, there's a very subtle line of financial abuse, because we make these agreements with our partner on how the household's going to run. And then when we do try to leave, there's a big financial component that has to be figured out. And again, as a neurosurgeon versus a starting entrepreneur, who's going to win the battle on getting the biggest, baddest lawyer and taking control of, you know, the child? I feel like, again, that seemed really tidy, but I agree with Kim. I think there would have been greater emotional outbursts based on what they said, you know, what they showed us about his trauma, as well as I think in a lot of higher economic households, that their money becomes a weapon for fighting, for continuing the connection to the person until there's finally the full separation.
Very good. Anybody else want to comment on that portion? Okay. All right, moving on. Kerri, what do you think they got wrong about the movie?
So I love that they brought this whole issue to light, right? I do think, I don't know, maybe I feel like they could have done a better job of like showing how to not just recognize the signs, but also how to address the sign, like how, like more like, here's here are some things that you can do. Like, she had that innate, like, I'm not going to put up with this, right? In her personality. You know, we saw a little bit of it at the beginning, that she's a strong female character who kind of faltered a little bit and then found her strength again. But that's not always the case. Like, a lot of times in a domestic abuse situation, the woman is so far, you know, submerged in whatever emotional, physical fear, things like that, that sometimes you don't even recognize the signs because you're so wrapped up in the fear, in the it's my fault, I'm not good enough, it's me, right? And so I feel like it would have been maybe nice to kind of see that side of it. Like, how do you come out of that kind of situation where you feel like you've just been slowly, I feel like they did okay with seeing a little bit of a slow progression into the abuse, but um more of like really showing how, yeah, we can start out strong and then uh how the oppression and the abuse kind of shrinks a woman sometimes, or a man if they're in a domestic, it just shrinks a person to the point where they're a shell of their previous self. And then how to kind of pull yourself out of that, or I don't know, showing how to take the next step. She
Mhm.
just said, I'm not going to do it anymore. That's pretty nice, neat, wrapped up, but showing more of the reality of, and maybe it was the Julia Roberts. I can't remember that movie,
Sleeping
but
with the Enemy?
was
Yeah.
she like escaping and
Yep.
stuff? Yeah. So maybe a balance of the two, because I feel like the Julia Roberts one, from what I can remember, was kind of an extreme the other way.
Yeah.
But just finding a balance.
Mhm.
Maybe somebody can make the movie where it's a balance between the super extreme fighting for your life and the emotional struggle that comes with domestic abuse. Because
Yeah.
I almost feel like the emotional struggle that comes with it is harder to break out of. Anyway, that's just me.
Absolutely. Kim?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on, oh, wait.
We can hear you. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
Okay, there we go. I just wanted to piggyback on what Kerri said and just a reflection about how abuse may appear. So it's kind of, it reminds me of like you put a frog in a pot of water and turn on the heat slowly. They're not going to jump out because they're slowly being boiled. They don't realize that it's happening until it's too late, right? And so very similar, abuse is the same way. It's like, you things are happening, especially with emotional abuse, because it's a little bit harder to notice because it's very subtle. It's like, things are happening. And so then all of a sudden you kind of move your tolerance level up to that situation. And then it escalates a little bit. And then you start moving your tolerance level up. And before you know it, you're like, well, what is going on? Like, how did this happen? How am I in the middle of this? This is so crazy. And from an outsider point of view, you're like, obviously, this is unacceptable. But when you're in it, it's like you've moved your tolerance level to match just to survive. And you don't even realize that you're in the middle of this really intense emotional abuse. And so I see that that can be really challenging for the person who's receiving the abuse because they're in this bubble of what they consider like the norm now, and they until you step out of that and reflect on it as an observer, it's like, well, this is my new norm. Like this is how I deal with things, it's kind of interesting.
Okay. Lauren, can you hear us? Okay, Lauren can't hear us. I'll message her. Okay, Laura.
I think something that could have added a lot of value to the movie, and I get that they were trying to encapsulate, a lengthy relationship, and it's hard to do in 2 hours. But I think one of the places that they could have enhanced things is in the hospital visit. Maybe I've watched too much Law and Order, but when a woman comes in with a bite mark and abuse signs, they don't give her the option of the kit of checking to swab her and all of that. They go through the whole thing. And so her turning that down, kind of, I mean, it didn't surprise me because again, that's part of the victim mindset, but I would have loved to have seen them go through all of that and then bring in what always tends to happen is a counselor. You know, there's going to be someone that comes in and sits down and does a little bit of education with the woman about, hey, this is what we're seeing. These are some signs. Here's some places to get help. And again, kind of like to what Kerri was saying is showing, helping that person reflect and gain a little bit of awareness in a moment of calm and safety of, and being able to look at the things that have been happening through a different lens, and then letting them know where there are resources, because I do believe that's something that happens in real life. I think that's part of what happens with the hospitals. My father had a brain bleed, and we had a social worker come and talk to him about how he was going to go back into his everyday life. So I'm pretty sure there's part of the hospital system where they have that. And so I would have loved to have seen that in the movie, because I think that also can subconsciously remind women, even if you get it, if you got to the hospital and it's a super bad day, there's still going to be help there, and there is going to be a way out. There's going to be a counselor, or they're going to give you resources. And that could have been a really great kind of mini PSA. And again, why they didn't put it in, I don't know.
Okay, very good. So I have a question for all of y'all. The rating for this movie was PG-13. It wasn't an R, so a 13-year-old girl could go and sit and watch this movie without her parents. Do you think that they got that wrong? I know that the abuse was subtle, like they didn't like actually show it. They just kind of showed around it. What are y'all's thoughts on that? Kerri?
I actually think it's okay. Because I think it's such an important message, especially for young women and men and young boys to see.
There's teenage abuse. Let's not gloss over this. It happened. Domestic violence happens in teenagers too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think the PG 13 rating is okay. Lord knows they see so much on their own now anyway.
Sure.
With smartphones. And so this is really, pretty mild, actually, I think, to what they see sometimes on cell phones, right?
Mhm.
But I think this kind of directed message might be helpful for young people to see and maybe recognize, maybe before they get to being in a relationship, maybe they, kind of recognize or feel connected. Oh, I see this in my family. This is not okay. I'm not going to fall into that. The only thing I would say again is I think, and it goes to what they got wrong. I would like what Laura said, there needed to be some other messages on how to get help or where to be, how to get safe if you're in that situation, who to go to, where to go, who to call.
It would have been nice if they'd have referenced no more in the movie.
Absolutely, because at the end of the movie, nobody's gonna, like, who's gonna stay and watch, once that movie's over, most people are headed out to beat traffic. So, like, that needed to be infused into the movie in several different places, I think. But as far as the PG-13 rating goes, I think it's okay.
Awesome, awesome. How did y'all feel about how the abuse was portrayed? Because I watched it, I didn't read the book. My understanding is that it was more overt in the book. When you watch the movie, you're like, oh, he just had an accident. He just dropped the pan, or, and then you're like, get toward the end of the movie, you're like, oh no, that was like major abuse, but they kind of didn't show it that way. Laura?
I thought they did a great job at creating the mystery. So that you could be in the experience with the main character where you're like, what just happened? Oh, it was just a hot pan. Oh, no, oh, his hands hurt. That's the most important thing because he's a surgeon. Oh, let's focus on him. Poor baby. Um, I thought that was really, again, I thought it was subtle and it reminded me of some murder mysteries that I watched that are British and British murder mysteries. They never show the act. They always show like someone's legs at akimbo, or they show a little teeny tiny, smidgen of blood, but they never show the actual activity. So I, I felt that that was good because of the taking away the shock value. And again, getting you to postulate on your own and stay in the story. But, and maybe I was just in an emotional place, but the last scene where she is begging him to come back and connect with her, she keeps trying to, and this is a technique you use when someone's in a triggered trauma response, is you're like, look at me, look at my eyes, I'm right here with you. Like she's trying to get him to be present and he is holding her down. And my impression of that scene was extremely violent, even though everybody looked like they had their clothes on for the most part. But I was left with the impression that that was marital rape.
Yep. Sexual
And,
abuse.
and that was extremely horrifying to me. And I disclaimer, I don't have children. So in the perfect world, I'm like, well, if I had a 13-year-old daughter, would I let her go to that movie on her own? Well, sure. Yes. I want her to hear that message and then we could process it. I don't know about the rating. I can't speak to that. It was extremely intense. I do think it should come with a trigger warning, like just generally like this is not only adult content, but this is about domestic abuse. Like, and again, I know a lot of the previews and stuff and ratings and, early reviews may mention that. I think people need to be aware before they go into that, whatever age they are.
There is actually some drama going on right now with the promotion of this movie because you have two camps and they're split. One is with Justin Baldoni, who is, the main actor guy, Riles, and also the director of the movie. And he's coming forward, really talking about domestic violence, I guess, because he plays the character. He doesn't want to be associated. I'm not that guy, but we need to address this. And then you have like, Blake Lively and everybody else on the other side. Even the author of the book is on Blake Lively's side, and because they're trying to promote it more as a rom-com. Because if you look at the picture, you're like flowers and fashion, and then you're like, you're stepping into this movie and don't know the backstory. You're going to be like, holy crap, what is this about? So there's kind of people are roasting Blake Lively right now because not only is she kind of doing a lot of product placement for the movie, like buy my hair care and buy my clothes and promoting her friend's line of clothes. And people are like, wait, you're losing the message of the domestic violence. So there's a lot of drama going on behind the scenes right now with the promotion of it, because is it a rom-com? Is it a domestic violence movie? What is this?
I did not find any comedy in there. I did want to speak to something that Kerri said, which is, I think they missed again another opportunity to show, like while she was gestating the beautiful baby, that would have been a great time to show her going to a counselor, getting resources, the counselor saying, have you learned about this organization? And then maybe her having a counseling session right before she sees him so she could practice and put in place what she just learned. So again, the viewer could see, oh, I go and learn things I can actually apply and I can empower myself with the abuser in front of me. I can be around them and still be safe. I can make myself safe. I think that would have been super powerful.
Yeah.
That's disheartening because I felt like Blake Lively being the producer, I thought she had more of a role in bringing this message to forward.
Her message is of empowerment, but she doesn't want to focus on the defining part of the movie.
Interesting.
But the sister though did bring levity. She did bring comedy, to a lot of the scenes. So not all of them, but there was some comedy. They put those like pajama things on and went out to the bar and like, they made light of some stuff, Okay, awesome. Okay, so one thing I think they got wrong, I would say they got half right, and this is a superficial one. It is the fashion. I liked some of the fashion, but then when she was wearing like the Carhartt overalls, and I don't know if y'all know about Carhartt, this is like a workman's outfit, and it didn't make sense to me because I'm like, yes, if she's going to be out there like tilling the fields for flowers, yes, wear that. But the fact that she's like in Boston and owning a flower shop, she's up on the rooftop and she's wearing this like men's overall Carhartt jumper. And I'm like, that's not sexy. What are they thinking?
Um, so Carhartt is like a super high fashion brand now.
Yes.
My sons like have Carhartt pants, and the beanies are like high fashion now.
They were a sponsor of the movie. That's why you saw so much product placement of Carhartt in there. She wore a lot of their overalls and stuff. And I just thought it didn't go with her fashion palette.
I felt that it was intentional because I felt like it was tying her back to her roots. And again, her being an artist, so she's going to dress funky. I kept having to remind myself it was in Boston because I kept thinking it was Pacific Northwest because there was kind of a grunge style. Like she came in and she'd have this grunge jacket and then she'd take it off and have a fancy gown. And I thought, again, I thought it was intentional for character development. They were like kind of showing like I can get in the dirt and I can gussy up. Like I can be soulful and tend to
Masculine.
the plants, and I can be in my full sexy feminine. Like I liked the juxtaposition. And I mean, I wore my hair messy for the last couple of days since I've seen her. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do the Blake Lively messy hair. Like it's got dirt in it. Who cares? And I thought it kind of lended itself back to like being a business owner. Like sometimes you got to dress up, but then you got to go and unload the truck and bring stuff in, and you got to put something on. So I didn't realize it was a product placement or that they're so trendy. I just thought it was to kind of show different sides of her character.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, Lauren.
I agree with you, Lisa, about the Carhartt. Like I really felt like when she was walking around in those overalls, I was like, what is this? Boston is conservative, but pretty like people don't wear Carhartts in Boston, in the city. And that the placement of her shop is right in the middle of everything. And nobody's wearing Carhartt overalls, even if they are super trendy right now. Maybe at Boston University, they're wearing Carhartts, but not in the city.
Yep.
Maybe they're trying to get them to wear them. Maybe this is an influencer.
Well, I
Like,
bet they will now.
Yep. Their stock just went up if y'all want to buy stock in Carhartt. Okay. So, any other last, what they got wrong? Lauren.
So they got wrong the magnitude of childbirth, not once, but twice. So the first one you guys brought up, the fact that he proposes to her as this child has just been born in front of his sister who has just given birth. And yes, taking away the moment from that beautiful family to his like fantasy of wanting to have his own family. So that's number one. But number two, she asked for a divorce after she had a baby. Now, any of us who've had babies, like you're not like it is a momentous, huge, physical, emotional, spiritual effort. You're not thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow. Like I thought it was packaged beautifully, but come on, people. It's not going to happen in the hospital. It is not. Like it was very well presented, but in reality, it's not happening there. That's all.
Yep. Yep. Too much oxytocin going on that she's not thinking like that.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Anybody else? Okay. My last question. I just want an overall rating for the movie, 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. What would you give it? And we'll go around. Kerri.
I think maybe a 7.5, maybe. Maybe I'm gonna go solid 7.
Solid 7. Okay.
Do you want an explanation?
Sure.
Yeah,
You
just because I feel like they had several missed opportunities to really kind of hit hard the message and how to help yourself out of domestic violence. So I feel like they had those missed opportunities. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Kim, what would you rate it?
So I'm in alignment with Kerri on the number, and for the reason that I think they missed some opportunities, but I give them a 7 because I feel like they did a lot of things intentionally. I like how they intentionally slowly built the characters and the transformation of the characters, and how you could see the progression of the abuse. And I think that's really important because many of us that haven't been in an abusive situation don't even truly understand, like, how could this sneak up on you like that. So I did like that, and I agree with Kerri that they missed some opportunities as well to really help support women in their journey out of an abusive situation.
Okay, thank you. Laura?
Well, I'm in my head because I do numbers. I'm thinking of like the average. I'm like, okay, well, the beauty, and then like the symbolism, and then like the dynamics, the intensity of the dynamics of all the relationships, and then the language, and then like sprinkling in some humor. And so, but when it comes down to it, yeah, I want to give them like a 7.5. I'm going to give them a little extra because I think, especially right now, it is so important for this type of message to be in a very prominent, well seen place, because I think there's a lot of women that are considering renegotiating a relationship, whether it's a marriage or whether there's actual physical abuse or there's some other type of abuse. I think this is in and of itself a really good PSA, even though they missed out on some of the follow through.
Very good. Lauren?
I'm going to give it an 8. I would not have gone to this movie had it not been for you guys. But I really enjoyed it. I think it's an important message. I think that the aesthetics were really spot on for the most part, except for the Carhartt stuff. And then, and I love the soundtrack. I would give it a higher number if they had promoted or organizations that help people with domestic abuse more. I think that it would have been more effective. But overall, I thought it was a great movie, and I'm glad I saw it.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so I am going to go with Lauren. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, just because there's so much crap Hollywood movies being made today that I'm like, I'm desperate for a good movie that I want to go see that makes me energized to talk about. And finally, there has been one this summer. So I really liked it. Again, for all the reasons y'all spoke about, I'm a sucker for the fashion and the romance part of it, and the hot guys, the eye candy. But it did fall short in some of the writing. Some of the scenes didn't always connect or make sense. So that could definitely be improved upon. And then, of course, just, the seriousness of the message. But I also know it's Hollywood. I mean, they can only give you 2 hours, and they're doing the best they can to do that. But knowing that it's, just an art form, it's one tool that you could use in helping a friend with domestic violence. I think this is a really good movie to start, because I think that they do a lot of tactfulness, and there's a lot of discussion that can be brought around it. So yes, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you, ladies. I appreciate you coming on my channel today and breaking down this movie with me. So I guess we're all in agreement. We do recommend it. And if you guys like this video, put a comment down below. Tell us what you liked about the movie, what you think the movie got right, what the movie got wrong. I'd love to hear y'all's feedback. So put it down below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to be alerted to when the next video drops. Thanks for watching. Thanks, girls.
Thank you.
Bye. Here.